morning, Kuhner country. Okay, two massive stories, and in a way, they're both intertwined. One, we are slowly marching now towards potentially a regime change war with Venezuela. Trump met with his national security team last night, and it now appears, no final decision has yet been made, but it appears we are on the verge of a war with Venezuela. And I will get to that. But before we get to that, the media now, the deep state, Trump's enemies within the Pentagon now believe they have the scalp of Secretary of War Pete Hegseth. And so here exactly now what is taking place. On Friday, the Washington Post released a piece completely anonymously sourced as usual, which was then followed up by, "This is CNN." And of course, CNN, because all they use is anonymous sources, nobody has the guts or the courage to actually go on the record and put their name behind anything. So when you use anonymous sources, you can pretty much say or make up anything you want. Well, they claimed in those two reports, which was then picked up by the entire anti-Trump media and then picked up by the Democrats in Congress and now by many establishment Republicans as well, that on September 2nd, that Pete Hegseth ordered 2 strikes on a narco-terrorist boat smuggling drugs in the Caribbean heading towards the United States. And according to the report, there was a first initial missile strike that badly damaged and incapacitated the boat, allegedly. There were 11 drug smugglers, i.e. narco-terrorists, on board the boat. 9 were killed, but there were apparently 2 survivors who, according now to the Post and CNN, were hanging on for dear life in a boat now that was basically smashed to pieces. There was then the order given for a second strike to fully sink the boat and to finish off the other 2 narco-terrorists, and this was done on September 2nd. There was a lot of debate initially. Is it even a true story? Is it an accurate story? Are they giving the complete comprehensive picture? Yesterday, the White House came out and laid it all out. According now to what the White House revealed yesterday, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth gave the order or the authorization, to be more accurate, to the head of Special Operations Command, Admiral Frank, he goes by Mitch, Frank Mitch Bradley, for Commander Mitch Bradley, Admiral Bradley, to take out the boat by using as many missile strikes as it takes. Bradley apparently then gave the order to fire the first missile. When he saw that the boat had not been sunk and that there were still 2 remaining survivors, he ordered the second strike. Hegseth then went on social media and said, I want to be crystal clear. I gave him the verbal order to do what needed to be done. I authorized the strike. Bradley was the one who oversaw and conducted the strike and gave the actual order when to launch the attack. But I stand behind Bradley 100%. He is a great American hero, a great military leader, and on this decision and every other decision in terms of taking out these boats that are smuggling drugs into the United States, blowing them out of the water, he says he stands by Admiral Bradley and every decision that has been made up until now. So it appears that Hegseth was the one who gave the verbal order, the authorization. Bradley was the one who gave the final sign-off. The strikes were launched, and it took 2 strikes instead of 1 strike to take out that one boat on September 2nd. Now, there have been about a dozen other strikes since September that have taken out about 80 narco-terrorists, and as I said, about a dozen boats. A lot of cocaine is coming through Venezuela, and they've been using this to try to get into the United States. The land border with Mexico is now sealed. It is very hard now for drug traffickers to get their product into the United States through the border of Mexico. So now they're trying to get drugs into our country using boats, drug smugglers. They've now taken the war against drugs and against narco-terrorism to the seas. And it is becoming very, very effective. Drug interdiction is way up. Drugs coming into the United States is now way down. Now, that's not the issue. For the left, for the media, and now for many of the deep staters against Trump, the issue is whether Pete Hegseth, by saying okay or giving the green light or the approval for this second strike, committed a so-called war crime. And the argument that they're making is, and this is the argument the media is making, they're in an absolute frenzy. It is now 24/7 media coverage. You now even have some Republicans who are calling for hearings, both in the House and in the Senate, is that, well, what was the point of the second strike? The point of the second strike was to take out 2 people who already were, the boat had been basically incapacitated. They were 2 survivors. There was no reason to take them out. They say they should have sent in a rescue team and then either arrested them or taken them into custody. So by ordering the second strike, what they did was effectively violate the laws of war, the laws of armed conflict, and commit a war crime by killing 2 civilians, this is their argument, who happened to be involved in the smuggling of drugs. Listen now to Senator Mark Kelly, part of the Seditious Six. He is one of the people now leading the charge, saying this is a war crime. Pete Hegseth now must resign. There needs to be massive investigations, and the admiral as well must be forced to resign. And President Trump, what did he know and when did he know it? Listen now to Senator Mark Kelly on CNN. Roll cut 8, Mike.
Based on what CNN is reporting, what the Washington Post is reporting, do you believe if there was a second strike to eliminate any survivors, that constitutes a war crime?
It seems to. If that is true, if what has been reported is accurate, I've got serious concerns about anybody in that chain of command stepping over a line that they should never step over. We are not Russia. We're not Iraq. We hold ourselves to a very high standard of professionalism.
Right, yeah, professionalism coming from you, huh? No, really, I have to say this. I'm sorry, but this from a guy who's ordering members or urging members of the military to defy lawful orders from Trump, openly fomenting sedition and insurrection, and you're going to talk to me about professionalism? No. Listen, this guy spent a lot of time in space, and I respect the fact that he was an astronaut for our country. But I swear to you, I think he left his brains up there in outer space. So this is the question I have for everyone in the media, every crazed moonbat, every Democrat, and now even these ridiculous establishment Republicans who are now going to be holding an investigation into this, calling for Pete Hegseth's head. They want him out, and maybe even in the dock for committing these, supposedly ordering a war crime. Where does it say anywhere in the laws of war, in the laws of armed conflict, that you can only shoot or hit a target once? Can somebody please explain this to me? So where did this somehow unwritten rule? I've never heard of this rule in the history of war. That suddenly, so if we have a group of terrorists that we're targeting, as an example, and we launch one missile strike, and it doesn't fully take out the compound that they're in, or they realize there are still a couple of survivors left, where does it say, aha, then they can run out and say, you only got one strike, you can't strike again, we free, we free, we free. Where does it say you only get one shot to take out a group of terrorists? Where is that written in the laws of the war, in the rules of engagement or laws of war in the Pentagon? So I look at this and I say to myself, well, no, they had an order to obliterate the boat. Okay, liberals now think, the media in particular, they have their Watergate or whatever now, Watergate. They've had so many Watergates. I'm not even going to say 2.0. This is, what is it now, 11.0. But they think now they've got the Trump administration. They've got Hegseth dead to rights, and they believe by extension the president himself. What they are now arguing is that this was, by the way, the first attack of a series of attacks on these drug boats smuggling drugs through the Caribbean from Venezuela, attempting to come into the United States. That this was the first time they took out these drug smuggling boats. This was in September 2nd, and it was a success, but it took 2 strikes. And now the argument is that by ordering a second strike, after the first one had basically debilitated the boat, killed 9 of the 11 narco-terrorists, the second strike, the 2 that were survivors were murdered, that this was cold-blooded murder. There was no need for a second strike, and that now Pete Hegseth needs to answer for this. They are now demanding hearings. Republicans are going along with the hearings. In the House, the Armed Services Committee is going to be holding hearings. So will the Senate. Mississippi Republican Senator Roger Wicker says he wants to call Admiral Bradley, Mitch Bradley, who was the one that oversaw the operation and gave the ultimate order for the second strike to take place, that he must testify now under oath. And Pete Hegseth, who now has come out and said he verbally told Bradley, you have authorization from me directly. If you feel the need for a second strike, launch that second strike. And so they want to put now Hegseth under oath, and they believe that they're going to have Hegseth admitting to the second strike, which he pretty much already has, and that they believe now that they can get them on war crimes and force Hegseth to resign and maybe even to face potential charges and go to jail. The question then is, can they get Donald Trump? This is their ultimate goal. So they're claiming that the second strike was not just immoral, it was illegal, it was unconstitutional. In fact, it violated the laws of war, international law, and even the laws of war as laid out by the Pentagon. This is their argument. Listen now to Caroline Leavitt. She went yesterday and was asked point blank, where does the administration stand on the second strike and on the roles of Admiral Bradley and, of course, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth? Listen now to Caroline Leavitt. Roll cut 11. Mike.
Was the initial order from Secretary Hegseth, everyone be killed, and did that come from President Trump?
I saw that quoted in a Washington Post story. I would reject that the Secretary of War ever said that. However, the President has made it quite clear that if narco-terrorists, again, are trafficking illegal drugs towards the United States, he has the authority to kill them, and that's what this administration is doing.
To me, yes, it's obvious. He has every right to take out these boats, to blow every single one of them out of the water. In fact, the Coast Guard, the U.S. Navy has been doing this for 50, 60 years. Like, this is nothing new here. So, of course, the president has the authority, and by extension, obviously, as Secretary of Defense. Like, what are we talking about? Now, furthermore, Levitt then was pressed. Well, again, what about the second strike? Is it lawful? Does it violate the laws of armed conflict and how we conduct things the United States does in terms of the Pentagon when we do launch strikes or when we do engage in what's called kinetic military action? Listen to Levitt's answer. Roll cut 12. Mike.
So much of the concern from Democrats and Republicans is focused on the survivors. Why won't the administration either confirm or deny or reveal whether or not there were survivors after that initial first strike? And what imminent threat would two survivors pose who were clinging presumably to the wreckage of that boat?
Again, as I said, I think you guys are sort of not listening fully to the statement I've provided. Admiral Bradley worked well within his authority and the law, directing the engagement to ensure the boat was totally destroyed and the threat to the narco-terrorists, to the United States, was eliminated. And for any further questions about his thinking, I would defer you to the Department of War. I obviously wasn't in the room.
Okay, so she's saying that the president acted within his lawful authority, that Secretary Hegseth operated in his lawful authority, and of course Admiral Bradley, who oversaw the strikes, clearly acted within his lawful authority. Basically, there's no there. That this is another faux democratic hoax. Okay? Like, Russia. I could go on and on. So they're now trying to, in other words, there was no war crime. What are you people talking about? You're making this up in a desperate attempt to bring down Hegseth and by extension the president. So Jackie Heinrich, Fox News, goes after Caroline Levitt, and in particular, going after Hegseth and Bradley. And the question she has is what, by the way, many rhinos now are pushing hard up on Capitol Hill. It's not just the Democrats. Because you see, the dirty secret is they want to get rid of Pete Hegseth. Listen now to Heinrich's question. Roll cut 13, Mike.
You said that the follow-up strike was lawful. What law is it that allows no survivors?
The strike conducted on September 2nd was conducted in self-defense to protect Americans in vital United States interests. The strike was conducted in international waters and in accordance with the law of armed conflict.
Now, what law? I mean, she answered it well, don't get me wrong, but this is how I'd have turned it around on Jackie Heinrich and everybody else in the room. The drive-by media, as Rush called them, the drive-bys. What law says you can't do a follow-up strike? I'm sorry, what law are you referring to? That suddenly now, we can't bomb a target a second time or a third time or a fourth time? Pete Hegseth now in the crosshairs. The media now is gunning for his head. The deep state is. Many Democrats, many Republicans, they now say he was complicit in a war crime, that after the initial first strike on Venezuelan narco-terrorist drug smugglers, in which the boat was incapacitated but not completely blown up, of the 11 on board, 9 were killed, but allegedly there were 2 survivors. A second strike was ordered, and by ordering that second strike, it was cold-blooded murder. Listen now to Rhode Island Senator, that blowhard, Sheldon Whitehouse, Democrat on MS Now, saying this is very bad for the United States. We are now on the wrong side of history. We are being led by war criminals. President Trump, Secretary Hegseth, and of course, the man who oversaw the operation, Admiral Frank Mitch Bradley. Roll cut 14, Mike.
Is it possible to commit a war crime if there isn't a war? What do we call it when there isn't a war?
I guess the common word would be murder.
Is that what you see here?
I don't know enough about the circumstances to, make a final legal determination. But for Pete's sake, you've got people whose boat has been blown up. Whatever they were doing has now ended in an explosion on the water, and you now have 2 survivors in the water. Even when you are at war, a decent nation goes and rescues the survivors and then treats them as prisoners of war, even in a war situation. In this case, I mean, to make a Hollywood reference, when the bad guys are machine gunning the survivors in the water, it's not Americans in the movies. It's the bad guys. And we are on the wrong side of this if we're blowing up survivors in the water rather than trying to send rescue.
I mean, this is, first of all, it's deranged. It's the stuff of fantasy. It's almost really, it's political pornography. That's what this is. I mean, don't talk to me about Hollywood movies. Hollywood has no idea what war is really like, and they never have. Now, let me just make some obvious points, and then I want to go to the phone lines. 617-266-6868 is the number. Not to beat a dead horse, but where is the law of armed conflict that says you can only shoot a target once? By their definition now, then literally every country in the history of the world that is engaged in war has been run by war criminals. How many times have we dropped bombs? I don't care. You can go back to World War I, World War II. Take any war you want. I don't care. And they go, no, the target wasn't completely destroyed. Drop another one. Or we're going to target this compound full of terrorists. No, there's still a few left. Fire another missile. Fire a third even. Fire a fourth. Do what you got to do to take them all out. Like, what planet? I'm sorry. What planet are these people talking about? I mean, really, what planet are they living on? What are they talking about? Okay, that's the most obvious. I mean, it's such an obvious such an obvious counter argument, such an obvious rebuttal. But then, furthermore, this is, they're acting as if this was a pleasure boat that our military just decided to blow out of the water for the hell of it. These are Tren de Aragua terrorists. Tren de Aragua has been designated by the United States as a foreign terrorist organization. These were Tren de Aragua narco-terrorists who were smuggling cocaine. You can see the drugs in the boat. You can see the terrorists in the boat. We know where they were heading. They were heading towards Puerto Rico in order to infiltrate our country so they can poison and kill our people. And this is lost in the entire context of this discussion. More Americans have died from illicit drugs. Take your pick. Fentanyl, cocaine, heroin, meth, all that garbage that is being smuggled into our country. More Americans have died from drugs than have died in all of the wars that we fought combined. So let me repeat this. Drugs coming into our country has killed more Americans than all of the wars we have fought in combined. And we lost over 400,000 just in World War II alone. 600,000 in the Civil War. Okay, so we're talking millions and millions and millions and millions. That's how serious of a threat drugs are to our nation. And we finally have a president and we finally have a Secretary of Defense who are willing to say, you know what? No, enough. No, we're not going to have our youth poisoned by this. We're not going to see hundreds of thousands of Americans die from drugs and ODs coming because of the garbage that's coming into our country. We're going to stop it finally once and for all. We're going to get serious. And Hegseth on day one said, we are no longer going to be a politically correct military. We're going to untie the hands of our warriors. And so, as Trump said, as Hegseth said, as everyone said, if you are a narco-terrorist, if you are a member of the drug cartels, if you are someone that wants to peddle this poison, Tren de Aragua, into the United States, we will find you, we will search for you, we will hunt you, and we will destroy you. Period. Full stop. And it's not just that we're blowing the boats out and the drugs are not coming in. Look at the deterrent. Everybody now knows in the Western Hemisphere, don't even try to smuggle drugs in because the Yanks aren't playing around this time. They're going to blow up the damn boat and everybody in it. So this idea that, they're acting as if these were two men, I assume they were men, these two men that were, killed in the second bombing, as if we had them in custody. As if, they waved the white flag and said, okay, please, we give up, please arrest us. And then we executed them in custody. Yes, that's a war crime. But no, these SOBs were on a boat. They were looking to smuggle drugs into our country, knowing it would murder and kill, God knows, thousands of Americans. And their boat got blown up, as it should have been blown up. And then they said, hey, look, the boat hasn't capsized, and you still got two of those terrorists, those two scumbags. 9 are dead, 2 are alive. Finish them off. We do that with terrorists all over the world all the time. Now, let me just say this, and then I want to throw it open to you. 617-266-6868. If this is a war crime, then I'm telling you, Obama is a war criminal. Joe Biden is a war criminal. Every president, Eisenhower is a war criminal. Reagan is a war criminal. Truman is a war criminal. Johnson is a war criminal. FDR is a war criminal. And every other leader in the world is a war criminal who's engaged in military action. This is childish. I swear, my Ashton and my Ava wouldn't talk this foolishly. This is about getting Pete Hegseth. And the reason why they want to get Pete Hegseth, let's be very, very clear, is because Pete Hegseth is changing and transforming the military to what it was intended to be, a lethal war-fighting machine. The days of affirmative action are over. The days of diversity, equity, inclusion are over. The days of politicizing our military are over. The days of putting Democrat yes men and Democrat yes generals, hacks like Mark Milley, are over. And the big issue is that Hegseth wants to go after the seditious six. He wants to go after Mark Kelly. He wants to go after Elisa Slotkin. He wants to go after Congresswoman Margie Goodlander. Every single one of them that fomented sedition and insurrection in that disgusting video. And so they're looking for any reason now. 617-266-6868 is the number. You can also text the Kuhner Man 70470, 70470. Okay, lines are jammed. I'm going to go to Vince in Germany, but just before I do, this is from 603. And the reason why I want to read this text is he has a son. I don't want to give specifics, but he has a son in the military, and he should be very proud, an elite member of our military. And he's a good friend of mine, Kevin. And this is what he wrote to me, and I want to share it with all of you. Jeff, the military has one mission and one objective. Kill the enemy. Not maim the enemy or incapacitate the enemy, but kill the enemy. And don't you think it's laughable that this faux outrage is coming from the same political side that had no problem with all of Obama's quote-unquote drone strikes, even though there were many of them that hit civilians, including massacring an entire wedding party. But all that was okay because it was ordered by a Democrat. I can't take any of their criticism seriously, and neither should anyone else. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. You know, and look, this is the cherry on the sundae. Not only did Obama order drone strikes, which literally wiped out entire wedding parties. They were innocent. There happened to be one terrorist who came to that wedding, and 200 people got incinerated. And it was done over and over and over and over again. Now, if those aren't quote-unquote war crimes, I don't know what is. And yet the Democrats, no problemo. He even went after American citizens. Al-Awlaki was the most prominent. He became a terrorist. Al-Awlaki did, but he was an American citizen, and Obama ordered him to be droned. Literally, to just take him out. There was no due process. He wasn't arrested. He didn't have his rights read to him or anything like that. So he ordered the indiscriminate murder of American citizens. So not only were children killed, not only were women killed, not only were civilians killed, but literally Americans were killed. These two narco-terrorists that they allegedly took out in that second strike, those aren't even American citizens. They're Tren-de-Aragua foreign terrorists. Well, so what? We're supposed to send a ship to scoop them up? Well, what if they have a bomb on them? You have no idea what these people have. So your mission is to take out the boat and kill everybody on board. Take them out and kill everybody on board. If it takes one bomb or two bombs or three bombs, I don't care. I mean, I like it nice and, tidy. One bomb, everybody's dead, but that's not war. Now, I want to ask all of you, and then I promise I'm going to go to the phone lines because they're jammed. 617-266-6868 is the number. The Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. Was the second strike on the narco-terrorist drug boat last September in the Caribbean by the U.S. military a war crime? So, was the second strike it was a Tren-de-Aragua boat. Was the second strike on the narco-terrorist Tren-de-Aragua drug boat in September in the Caribbean by the U.S. military, was it a war crime? The media, moonbats, Democrats say yes. A, yes. B, no. You know me, I'm a hell no on this, but what I ask all of you, A, yes, B, no. You can vote on our webpage, WRKO.com/Kuhner, WRKO.com/Kuhner, KUHN is a national ER. If you prefer, you can vote via X, and I'm very active on X as always. My handle there, one word, at the Kuhner Report, at the Kuhner Report, KUHN as in national ER, Vince in Deutschland, in Germany. Thanks for holding, Vince, and as always, welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. So, is a Hellfire missile up the rear end of your drug boat, isn't that denying you life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? I mean, it's ruining your day for sure, right? I mean, what this world needs less of is lawyers, and it always astounded me the idiocy you'd hear come out of the Pentagon or the command about law of armed conflict, which, there's basic guidelines. What's gentlemanly and humane, okay? But warfare in itself is inhumane. Just to the mere fact that you're killing people, right? either willfully or unwillfully. On their side, I'm saying. Of course, you're killing them willfully because you've been told to do it, and you believe in the cause, right? So that's why you kill them, because you believe in the cause. Anyway, I digress. Mark Kelly, first off and foremost, is illegitimate. He's an illegitimate senator because he was part of that whole rigging in Arizona in 2020 with Kerry Lake and Abe Hamadeh. And I forget the guy he defeated. He was backed by Peter Thiel. I've already forgotten his name, but the guy that Mark Kelly beat in the rigged election. So there's that. What's funny about Mark Kelly is he's in with the McCain crowd. Those naval aviators are real tight. They stick together, and we know about those McCainiacs. There isn't a war that they don't love, as long as it's on their terms, Jeff, on their terms. But, yeah, sedition. They should bring him back. Put him in uniform, humiliate him with a uniform inspection conducted by Pete Hegseth, of course, before they court-martial his rear end, like they should do Milley, like they should do the whole rotten bunch. The other Kelly, too, the one from Jamaica Plain there, the four-star, who lost his son in Iraq. How does he live with himself knowing he served his son up in Iraq to the neocons? Yet he defends them every day.
That's Vince, very powerful. Look, you served. You know what it's like. I've got to ask you, if you were in the Situation Room, or if you were with Pete Hegseth, and Admiral Bradley is on the phone, and he says, look, we've got Trender Aragua, we've got him dead to rights, the boat is loaded with cocaine, they're heading towards Puerto Rico, do we have the authority to take him out? And Hegseth says, go ahead. Bradley takes him out. The boat is still not completely destroyed. It's still, it's incapacitated, but it hasn't been capsized. And there's still a couple of people hanging on, a couple of survivors. Would you say no to a second strike, or would you say finish the mission?
It's called a cleanup shot, Jeff. That's all it is. Send them in for a reattack. We did it all the time in Afghanistan. Usually we'd shoot one shot at them, and then we'd say fire for effect, meaning the first shot was good, so now just neutralize the target, light it up until it's lit. Until you do your BDA, which is your battle damage assessment, which by law you're required to do, to give an assessment of what you destroyed. Okay?
Vince, I agree with you, not 100, but 1,000%. But I just want to play, because you're such an expert on this. Let me just play devil's advocate. Okay, let me be one of these Democrat morons. Well, Vince, the target's been neutralized. The first bomb struck. The boat now has been essentially debilitated. What's the point now of killing the other two survivors? We should go in there, save them, rescue them, arrest them. Now we're just like the Russians, Vince. We're just like the Iraqis, Vince. We're like the Nazis, Vince. We're killing people who are now helpless and innocent. What say you?
Well, I say the lawyers write the law of armed conflict, and the lawyers write the rules of engagement. So consult the lawyers. If they don't like it, change the law. They write the rules. These guys are clowns. They're clowns. And what's funny is, like, to the normie out there, the average listener, and I don't mean to say that as an insult. I'm just talking about people that are caught up with their day-to-day lives, and they don't get into the minutia of the argument. But it's like, to the normal people out there, they hear this and they're like, well, yeah, that makes sense. What do I do to my neighbor, right? Would I beat his head in with the tire iron once he's down? No, maybe I would walk away. Maybe, like, if he attacked me, I would just, like, attack back until he didn't attack me anymore, But that doesn't mean I have to kill him. But that's like civilized society. I go back to warfare. What is warfare? We've decided to go to war against a nation, an organization, whatever, and so we destroy it until it's done, until they say no more destroying, no more destruction. Now, they classify these people as terrorists. So if you want to get into the law of armed conflict, terrorists fall under a different category than enemy combatants. You know what I mean? Meaning that you can stomp on that bug until that bug doesn't move anymore.
Bingo. Vince, honestly, best in the business. Dynamite call. Vince, thank you very much for that call. There you go. I mean, that's why, Trump and Hegseth and Caroline Leavitt, and they're like, look, we're taking out terrorists. I mean, and the media is deliberately omitting that these are boats operated by Tren de Aragua, which is a foreign terrorist organization. So they're like, we're taking out a group of terrorists. Like, what are you people talking about? Yeah, blow up the boat and everybody in it. What are you, crazy? Like, what? We're just going to, what? So let's say the two of them escape. What, you think they're going to not be running drugs? So they escape, they make it out somehow, they swim to safety or swim to shore or whatever it is, and then what? The next batch of fentanyl, they get into our country. And then literally tens of thousands of Americans are killed by it. So, no, you got them, you finish them. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree? Bruce in Woburn. Thanks for holding, Bruce, and welcome.
Yes, you got me at the end of a long giddy up, and you're going to cut me off before I have to say what I have to say. What I have to say is, we got Pistol Pete in there for a reason. He changed the rules of engagement to where we're not going to be victims anymore, like our police officers getting killed, our National Guard, our ICE agents. See, the Moonbats, they don't care about you and I. They want the drugs to come in so they can get the votes for their little blue states, because they're all relying on these drugs to come in. And it's like you said, it's not just cocaine. It's not just fentanyl. It's methamphetamine, heroin, and this is what they're bringing in. These people are killers. So what? I wouldn't have shot that second shot, Jeff. I wouldn't have allowed that second shot. I would just had to fly over and watch them get eaten by sharks. That's what I would have liked to have. This is what they deserve. Look at Benghazi. Look at Benghazi. Look at the Afghan withdrawal. We were withdrawing peacefully, and they didn't take out the terrorists. If they had taken out the terrorist with the bomb, our guys would be home. But we shouldn't have been out of there anyway. This to me, that's against Biden and Obama and everybody that was involved, because they were all involved. That was a war crime to me, to have our servicemen slaughtered and all those innocent civilians slaughtered. And these people have the gall to say that Pistol Pete is in the wrong, and that President Trump is in the wrong. Are you kidding me? That's what we elected them for this. They're doing their job. These people need to go lay down. They're like spacemen out in Pluto.
Bruce, I want to play a cut, and I want to get your reaction, because you're 1,000% correct. And this people, I almost forgot about it. I remember at the time it was a big issue, and I was spearheading the charge against Biden. So you're completely right. So we have the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, the terrorist strike at Abbey Gate. 13 U.S. service members are murdered, killed. By the way, many others are dismembered, crippled, maimed. Everybody forgets about them. But 13 of our own are killed, and it could have been prevented. We had the terrorist, and Biden gives the order not to deliver the kill shot. So, and by the way, hundreds of innocent Afghan civilians were slaughtered as well. So it's an atrocity. Now, Milley looks bad. Biden looks bad. So they need to retaliate. And so the next day, in order to retaliate, people have forgotten about this, Biden orders a drone strike. This is now inside the capital of Afghanistan, Kabul. And they think they're striking at a terrorist cell that was involved in Abbey Gate. But it turns out they got the wrong car. They were not terrorists. They had nothing to do with terrorism. They had nothing to do with Abbey Gate. In fact, it was a car loaded with children. And they were going to a house where there were children literally playing in the courtyard. And so they launched this devastating drone missile strike that literally wiped out, what was it, over a dozen people, 8 of them children. And what I mean by children, I'm talking 5, 6, 7-year-old kids. It was a slaughter. You want war crime? This is your war crime. I mean, you can't even say we got one terrorist and then there's collateral damage. There were no terrorists. They admitted there were no terrorists. They literally, pardon the expression, they effed up. And so they tracked somebody. They thought that person was going to be a terrorist. Turned out Al-Qaeda. Wasn't Al-Qaeda. Oops, we made a mistake. They were literally innocent people. And then over a dozen of them, including 8 kids, killed. What did the media say? Nothing. What did the Democrats say? Nothing. Now, this is not ancient history. This is under Joey, just 4 years ago. Okay, under Biden. But when the media asked the Pentagon to get their reaction, listen now, this is Admiral John Kirby. Remember that liar? Okay, NSA spokesman. He goes on, now they're MS Now. They're always changing their name. Then they were MSNBC. Listen now to what Kirby said in response to that heinous, brutal, savage drone strike that literally killed innocent children. Roll cut 10, Mike.
How does it strike you that no one is held accountable? Because I know how it strikes a lot of people around the world that you can get away with murder and nobody's punished for it.
I do understand that. We appreciate that not everybody's going to support this decision. What I can tell you is we looked at this thing very, very comprehensively. And again, we acknowledge that there were procedural breakdowns. Processes were not executed the way they should have been. But it doesn't necessarily indicate that an individual or individuals have to be held to account for that. But look,
is there discipline inside the Pentagon at all? I mean, maybe there are no charges brought up, but is anyone demoted or disciplined for what happened that day?
What we are going to do, there's not going to be individual discipline as a result of this, Willie. But what we are going to do is learn from this, and we're going to enact and improve our procedures and our processes to try to make sure this doesn't happen again.
It's a learning experience. You kill 8 children, many of them literally 4, 5, 6 years old, completely innocent. It's mass murder. This was mass murder. Ordered by Biden and ordered by Milley. You want to talk about war crimes? This is it. This is textbook war crimes. They even admit it was murder. Did anybody lose their job? Niet. Was anybody even freaking demoted? I don't know, suspended for a week without pay? Niet. Bruce, it was a learning experience. So you see, when the Democrats commit real war crimes, nothing. When the Republicans commit, or in this case Trump, fake war crimes, there was no war crime. It was all legitimate from beginning to end. It's Watergate, it's Auschwitz, it's investigations, it's resignations, it's a presidency now in turmoil. Bruce, final word to you.
Wait till they go into Louisiana with permission from the governor and clean up. They got to clean up Louisiana really bad because they're all in there thicker than thieves. They're going to do it. And they're doing their job. And don't take that away from them. Don't muddy the waters with all this bureaucratical BS. They're doing their job that we hired them for, and there's a rally in Burlington on the 6th against ICE. I'm not going to show up because I know what I'll do. I'll get out of control, and I'll get arrested, and I don't want to do that. But the world will see that these people aren't right in the head.
Bruce, thank you very much for that call. When the seditious six, posted that video, this is what they're trying to create. Don't have the military defy Trump, defy Hegseth, defy Admiral Bradley, and say, no, I'm not going to take out these Tren-de-Aragua drug boats. I'm not going to follow lawful orders. I'm not going to say if Trump orders an attack on Venezuela. 617-266-6868 if you want to be part of the show. Okay, Pete Hegseth now in a world of trouble. He now is under withering criticism. They're headhunting. I mean, they are going for his political scalp. The media now senses blood in the water. Democrats are now going to hold hearings. Many Republicans are collaborating. They want Hegseth to be forced out as defense secretary because of the decision to launch a second strike, a second missile attack or missile strike on a boat that was smuggling drugs, cocaine, towards the United States in the Caribbean. Tren-de-Aragua. There were 11 narco-terrorists on board. The first strike badly damaged the boat, killed 9 of the 11 on board. 2 survived, and then the order was given for a second bomb, a second bombing. And that capsized the boat completely and killed the 2 remaining survivors. Now the media, liberals, Democrats, even many Republicans now are saying this was a war crime. And they want to know who gave the order. It was Admiral Bradley who oversaw the operation, but Pete Hegseth yesterday went on X and said, I want to be crystal clear. I back Admiral Bradley's decision 100%, and I gave him the authorization to take a second strike or a second, do a second bombing to finish and complete the mission. And now they want Hegseth to go to Congress under oath, and they are now demanding his resignation and potentially even being tried for war crimes. And they say once Hegseth falls, they want to go after Trump, saying that the president bears responsibility. He is a war criminal as well. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, this is from Joe in Randolph. And he sent me, I thought, an absolutely brilliant point regarding the second bombing. Let me ask, Jeff, what's more civilized, a second shot or leaving these 2 survivors to starve, drown, or be eaten alive by sharks? Give me a break. After 9/11 and all of the innocent people that were killed, I say F them all. The kid gloves are off. It's good. About time. And Jeff, also, how long until these drug dealers start using kids on board to stop these attacks on them? Well, that's probably going to be next. Yeah, it's a brilliant point on both counts, Joe. They're going to start using kids as human shields. I think there's no question, because that's the kind of people we're dealing with. And look, yes, 2 survived. But if you see the video images that were released of the first strike, I mean, that was a devastating strike. There's no way that those 2 survivors weren't wounded. I mean, they may have been clinging to remains of the boat, but I'm telling you, they were wounded. They were bleeding. They were in the middle of the Caribbean. They're in shark-infested waters. Joe makes a brilliant point that nobody's brought up. What's more humane? Well, you just want to, okay, fine. We called up the lawyers, and the lawyers say, Well, according to this section of the Parliament, of the Pentagon manual on lawful armed conflict, this subsection, this clause, I don't know. I don't know. The New York Times could get upset about this. Senator Mark Kelly, Dr. Evil, he may be calling for war crimes investigations. And so, you know what? Just leave him. Just leave him and send the drones back home. Well, what do you think is going to happen? You know what a horrible way it is to die drowning to death? Or, God forbid, being eaten alive by sharks? So even on the humanitarian front, and not that I care, to me this is a military mission. All that matters is that it's lethal and successful. But even on the humanitarian front, would you rather drown to death in the middle of the Caribbean? Or, bleeding and wounded with sharks, swirling all around you? I don't want to be eaten by sharks. If I'm there, I'm like, please finish me off. Like, just please end it. Just please give me a second strike. I'm begging you. Just finish it. Get me before the sharks get me. So even from a humanitarian point of view, they did the right thing. Am I wrong? 617-266-6868. Linda in Medford. Thanks for holding, Linda, and welcome.
Well, it seems to me all of this could have been prevented very easily. Maduro could have just stopped the boats on his end. I mean, it's sort of ridiculous to blame us.
No, you're right. You're completely right. Maduro is sending the boats into the United States. If he says, stop, the boats stop. So, I mean, see, Linda, they're blaming us for defending ourselves, our country, and our people and our young people from this invasion of drugs. But they're not blaming Maduro for sending out Tren de Aragua and sending out these boat smugglers and these drug traffickers. Linda, do you think they were right to launch that second strike to finish them off?
I don't know if it's right or wrong, but I don't care about it. It would be the better way for me to say it. I feel as though we're at war with the cartels. I really believe that what they're trying to do is...
Well, they're trying to destroy us. I'm almost laughing as I say it, but that's now what the media is now pushing 24/7. The Democrats now believe they got him, and many Republicans now also want to push Hegseth out for numerous reasons, political reasons. Part of it is to damage Trump. Many of these rhinos now are bristling under Trump's control of the Republican Party, and they now want to deliver a severe blow to him, and there's no other better way to do it than to go and take out one of his top people, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth. 7:32 now on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, this is from 781. Texted the Kuhner man. It's a picture of Hunter Biden. He's on his iPhone, and it says, "Hey, Dad, they blew up my boat." Touche, 781. Touche. This is from 508. Jeff, I was up early and watched good chunks. This is for we have a big audience, a huge streaming audience outside of New England. So to everybody listening outside of New England, Channel 4, Channel 5, Channel 7, Channel 10, those are the big local stations here in Boston. So 508 says, Jeff, I was up early today, watched good chunks of Channel 4, Channel 5, and Channel 7 morning news. I even tried Channel 10 NBC. What a bunch of local, I cannot say this on the air, what a bunch of local BS. Bravo, Sierra. The story they're promoting around the clock is that Pete Hegseth is a war criminal. And the Armageddon first snowstorm is coming. That's all it is. Hegseth is a war criminal, and this first snowstorm is going to be Armageddon. Pathetic. The media is so controlled by the left that I don't even think they realize it. To them, it's just another normal day. Anyway, so 6-1, you're completely right. Completely right. And look, the reason is obvious. You have to paint now Pete Hegseth as a war criminal, Trump as a war criminal, to try to justify the seditious six. To say, yeah, you shouldn't follow, Trump's orders because they're quote unquote unlawful. They're war crimes. And if you engage in them, you will be prosecuted as a war criminal. So it's to justify the subversion of the military chain of command and to justify the fact that these 6 members of Congress, 2 Democrat senators, 4 members of Democrats, members of the House, openly fomented in sedition and insurrection. The seditious 6. And that's why now they have to give this false, faux story maximum play and with full investigations now both in the House and in the Senate with the complicity of these stupid establishment Republicans. So that's why I hope Trump hangs on to Hegseth, stands by him 1,000%, and tells them to go pound sand. Agree, disagree. Dave in Pennsylvania. Thanks for holding, Dave, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How you doing, buddy?
How is our Western PA constitutionalist correspondent out in the Pittsburgh area doing, my friend?
Good. Well, I missed work today because I was a little under the weather, but we're getting slammed with snow, but not like you guys. I know I'm from Boston, Jeff. You guys get slammed with snow, but how was your Thanksgiving?
It was very good. I was a little bit marred by the shooting on Wednesday, to be honest.
Yeah, me too.
It bothered me. It bothered me. I'm not, I still enjoyed my wife, my kids, my family. Don't get me wrong. But it was there in the back of my mind. But other than that, it was a wonderful Thanksgiving. Dave, you served our country. You're a Marine. What do you make of this? They're saying now that Trump and Hegseth violated the laws of war, violated the laws of lawful or of combat, and that now Hegseth needs to pay a massive price. He needs to step down. He may even need to face charges. And that Trump now, this is his Watergate, that we have a war criminal as president of the United States. What say you?
Well, first of all, Jeff, the Democrats and the rhinos are deep state hypocrites because they've done things that have violated the rules and the laws of war, also known as the Geneva Convention, Jeff. So they got room to talk. Just like I posted last night on Facebook, and I sent it to you, about that Senator Van Hollen. He's all up in arms about these boats being hit, but yet he'll support his buddy Abrego Garcia, the Maryland man. You saw my post. I sent it to you. So, Jeff, they're just hypocrites. They're backing up a wrong tree. You know why they're doing this, Jeff? Because Democrats are more dangerous out of power than when they're in power. You know what I'm saying, Jeff? All they do is just talk a good game. They run their mouth, a hole in their face, and they don't do anything to back up what they believe in, Jeff. They're hypocrites. You know that. I know that. The media knows that. The MS now knows that. They change their name, but they're still the same BS, Jeff. I mean, what do you expect, right?
Dave, if you were on that mission, or let's say you were an advisor to the mission, and you've got Trender Aragua, foreign terrorist organization, and they got tons of cocaine, and these narco-terrorists got on a boat, they're heading towards our shores, they're going to offload it, God knows how many Americans are going to be killed. You've got the shot, you take the shot, but the boat is not completely destroyed, and you've only taken out 9 of the 11 terrorists. 2 have still survived. They're barely hanging on. Do you take the second shot and finish them off, or do you leave them alone? In other words, is the second shot, the second bombing, the second strike, whatever you want to call it, was that crossing the line? And in your view, as a military man, was that a war crime? What say you?
First of all, Jeff, I'll wrap up 2 issues at the same time, and it's going to involve the so-called unlawful orders. Jeff, not only do I blow that boat away and there's 2 left, I both shoot them in the shoulder so they become fish food because the sharks will get them. Second of all, I'm going to follow through with that order, and I'll be glad to honor our president and follow any order he gives me. It's not my job, Jeff, to determine as an enlisted man or a lower grade officer or whatever excuse me, rank I am. My job is to complete the mission, follow the orders to the I's dotted, T's crossed, and never question authority. And Jeff, a real leader, like I told you before, I was an NCO in the military, non-commissioned officer. I never made my men do anything that I wouldn't do myself. And that's a sign of leadership. If I'm going to do the push-ups, they're going to do the push-ups. If I'm going to jump out of a perfectly good airplane, they're going to do it too. But I'm not going to make them do anything I would not do myself, Jeff. And that's a sign of leadership. And I'm not tooting my own horn. That's just the facts.
You're a patriot. And Dave, from the bottom of my heart, I know I say it almost every time, but thank you for your service. I love you guys. And what you just said, no truer words have been spoken. Dave, thank you so much for that call. Look, this is the point, going back to Mark Kelly, because he's the one that's leading the charge. The whole Democratic Party now is behind it. But Kelly, they're putting Kelly out there as the front man for the media on, this is a war crime. How could he have taken the second shot? The second strike? Oh, my God. This is so wrong. Senator Kelly should know better than anybody. And Hegseth wrote him a direct letter saying, you're now under investigation. Kelly is now under investigation by the Pentagon for having fomented sedition and insurrection, for putting out that ridiculous video. And as Hegseth told Kelly, you are still a member of the military, even though you're retired. And it is illegal to tell people to defy orders. Why? Because it undermines good order and discipline. What Dave in Pennsylvania rightly said is, look, think about it. What if everybody in the military said, I'm not so sure about this order. I don't know if I agree with this order. You know what? I need to know more before I decide to do this. You don't have a military. You can't function. Your entire order and chain of command and discipline completely breaks down. As a military, you're useless. And that's why that video was not just so disgusting, it was so dangerous. Because it was deliberately sowing sedition and defying the chain of command. And as Hegseth said, you are destroying and grinding down. You're subverting good order and discipline. And the reason is they're trying to destroy Trump from within. Neutralize Hegseth, neutralize Trump, neutralize our military, prevent them from sending in the National Guard to all of these cities, prevent ICE from carrying out these deportations, prevent them from stopping these drug smugglers and drug traffickers from sending their poison into our country. So this is no coincidence that this is all happening right now. So no, unretire Mark Kelly, put him back in the military, have him, I want him dressed, as a military, put him back in uniform, have Pete Hegseth do a military uniform inspection on him. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, this is from Kyle on Messenger. Short and very sweet. Jeff, wasn't it Bill Clinton who blew up an aspirin factory? That's true. You don't mean to, I don't want to laugh and make fun of, poor innocent people getting killed. But do you remember in the late 90s, to distract from the Monica Lewinsky scandal. He launched these missile strikes into East Africa and literally claiming like this was some kind of a terrorist compound. And instead it was an aspirin factory. And all those poor innocent workers, men, women, some of them children. It's East Africa. They have child labor. And, how many of them? Several, I believe it was, hundreds or whatever, dozens dead, slaughtered. It's a pure war crime. Slaughtered. No problem. No, hey, if you're a Democrat, no problem. 617-266-6868. Okay, listen now to Dr. Evil. So here is Mark Kelly, Senator Mark Kelly, part of the seditious six. This is him now on CNN. So he's called Hegseth a war criminal. He said now there needs to be an investigation for war crimes. There's going to be a Senate hearing, a House hearing. He's back on CNN, and now he's making it pretty clear. Hegseth has to go. Hegseth is the problem, not Dr. Evil. Roll cut 15, Mike.
Admiral Frank Mitch Bradley was in charge. He's a head of Special Forces. And then he is the one that gave the order for the second strike, the double tap on the whatever survivors there were. Who is ultimately responsible if there is something wrong with the double tap strike, with the second strike?
Well, Jake, I think it's going to be really important for my committee, the Armed Services Committee that I sit on, the same thing in the House, to get these people in the room and get testimony from them under oath. Maybe part of it in a SCIF and in a secure facility and part of it publicly, to get what the exact real story is. I think this is what happens when you put an incompetent individual in perhaps the second most important job in our country, the Secretary of Defense. Pete Hegseth had no business being nominated. Republicans in the Senate should not have confirmed him. And he's been there for less than a year now, maybe 7 or 8 months. And this is the result of incompetence at the highest level.
You mean blowing up the drug boat? That's the incompetence. And I think, what are they, 12 for 12? I think, what is it? They've blown up 12 drug boats. Like, they haven't missed a target yet. So I'm sorry, where's the incompetence? Oh, you want the drugs to be let in. Oh, okay. So you want the cocaine and the heroin and the meth and the fentanyl. Just keep it coming in so we can keep having millions and millions of Americans killed? That's your idea of a success? You phony, you fraud, you. Seriously. Now, he then holds a press conference. I swear, if I said this, you wouldn't believe me. So I'm going to play the cut. And I don't know if in fact, he is worried. He's worried about Hegseth because Hegseth now is demanding an investigation into what Kelly did, posting that seditious six video, urging that soldiers, people in the military, people in the intelligence community defy and ignore lawful orders from Trump. In other words, to subvert the commander-in-chief and the military chain of command. And so, listen now to this. With his pointy ears and that completely bald head of his, where, as I said, he looks like either out of the Goonies or out of, Austin Powers' Dr. Evil. He looks, I'm telling you, like some kind of a caricature of a villain in a Hollywood movie. There he is with his creepy hands, his creepy eyes, and he's turning white as a ghost with his pointy ears. And now he says that Trump is actually out to kill him. That he goes on this unhinged rant that the President of the United States is now out to kill Mark Kelly. Listen now to Dr. Evil. Roll cut 17, a mic.
He's putting out. President Trump is trying to silence me. threatening to kill me for saying what is true. And he sent his Secretary of Defense after me. And it's not going to work.
Yeah. All right. Well, you're such a truth to power kind of guy. Oh, Mark, you're scared? Dr. Evil, you're scared? You. Ay, ay, ay. Trump is out to kill you? Ay, ay, ay. Ay, ay, ay. No, they want you court-martialed. They want you court-martialed for what you said and what you did. And they want you put in front of a military tribunal. And they want you to pay the price for sedition. Because that's what you are, you little weasel. You're a modern-day Benedict Arnold. You're a traitor and a seditionist. And if I were you, I'm not kidding, I would start laying the groundwork for my defense. And the groundwork should be, reason of mental deficiency. I'm not guilty. Why? I'm just not right in the head. Because I spent so much time in space that apparently I left my brain up there. Because if this does go to a military tribunal, that video, he's finished. I'm telling you, he's finished. They're going to find him guilty, and either they're going to put him behind bars or they're going to give him the death penalty. And that's why now he's freaking out. They're taking out Hegseth because they know he wants to take down the seditious six, and now they have to stop Hegseth at all costs. Jeff in Quincy. Thanks for holding, Jeff, and welcome.
Jeff Kuhner, how are you today, my friend?
Very good. How are you, Jeff?
Wonderful. I have 2 points, and I hope you had a great Thanksgiving. My first point is pretty simple. You have a video of Kirby saying that what they did was a mistake by blowing up a family of 10 getting water in Afghanistan. You have a video of Mark Milley saying that it was a righteous strike. So they were admitting that Mark Milley killed a family of 10, recall him, and court-martial his ass and put him on trial for war crimes. That's point number one. What do you think?
You're a genius. I'm waiting for point number two because point number one was so freaking good.
Well, you're going to love point number two.
Keep going. You're on a roll, Jeff.
So point number two is equally as good. The reason the Republicans can't win a friggin' election is because no one shows up to vote without Trump on the ballot. And the reason why is because they're spineless cowards. Every one of them. And I am done with the Republican Party.
We're doing great until you swore. Say freaking, say this, come on. I know your passions are high. I get it. But please, that's the only thing. Jeff, what are you trying to do? Get me fined? But otherwise, perfect call. Except for dropping the F-bomb. Okay, but outside of that, it was a perfect... No, you're completely right, Jeff. It was a perfect call. And look, I just want to piggyback off of your last point. This is why, look, there's a big special election today. It's going to be in Tennessee. It's a seat for Congress. It's in Nashville, or the district that encompasses Nashville. This should be a layup for Republicans. It's a deep red district. It is very close. Very close. The Republican candidate, Epps, is now slightly ahead, and I'm talking about a crazy moonbat. This is a woman who's not just a radical Democrat, but openly has badmouthed Nashville. She literally has made fun of Nashville. She says she hates Nashville. She hates Christians. She hates country music. And she's going to be representing that district in Congress, and it's still neck and neck. The Republicans may lose their House majority if they're not careful. That's why the special election is such a big, big bellwether. They had to even send in the big guy, Trump, who went there yesterday to try to rally the troops. But to your point, Jeff, if Trump is not on the ballot, look at how demoralized voters are. Look at just how the voter turnout is so low. How people just don't want to vote for the Republicans on our side. They feel so alienated, and there's no passion or there's no commitment. Why? Look, why are we making arguments in defense of Pete Hegseth, which are slam dunk arguments? Why aren't the Republicans making this argument? I mean, just as you pointed out, it was a party of 10. They were going to get water. They were at a house in a courtyard. This was in Afghanistan. And Biden and Milley ordered a drone strike in which 8 children were murdered. There's not a single terrorist. It was a complete botched screw up. And you're right. They defended Milley, and Milley came out and said it was a righteous kill. What? You just admitted to killing 10 innocent people. Nothing happened to Milley. Nothing happened to Biden. Nothing happened to anybody. And that was 4 years ago. And suddenly now, you're trying to claim that, this is Auschwitz or Buchenwald or one of the greatest war crimes in the history of humanity? The defense secretary has to go. Admiral Bradley has to go. Donald Trump has to go. You can't make this up. That's why nobody wants to vote for the Republicans. Because they're a bunch of yellow-livered, feckless, spineless losers. And my fear is, if this trend continues, they're going to lose the House. And I don't care for them. I care for Trump. If they lose the House, the Democrats are going to impeach. They are going to paralyze Trump's the last 2 years of his term and render him really essentially a lame duck. So hopefully the Republicans are listening and listen to your voters. They're sick of you because you're not doing anything. Get off your rear end and fight. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. Jim in the great state of Virginia. Thanks for holding, Jim, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Jim?
Good. Hey, I just want to make a point before say something before I get to my what I really want to say is I would love to see people that their parents, family that lost loved ones to drugs to organize somewhere and go to Washington and make a case. I think that would really rattle the Democrats and the Republicans, to tell you the truth. I don't understand why somebody has lost their loved ones to fentanyl, and why would anybody be against what Pete Hegseth's doing?
Jim, I promise you're going to get to your main point, but because this is such a good point. You see, the thing about the drug war, which is why Trump has so much support from the American people, and the elites in Washington just don't get it. Look, I've never used drugs in my life. My wife has never used drugs in her life. Okay? Yet I know people who have been affected by drugs. I know people who've lost loved ones due to drugs. My point being, even if you don't use drugs yourself, the drug epidemic is so prevalent, so rampant, it has so ravaged our society for so many decades that I think everybody out there, if they haven't personally experienced it, knows someone who has. And I think that's why everybody's like, yeah, amen, finally. Finally, we're having a war on the drug cartels. Finally, a war on these drug traffickers. Finally, someone who's willing to stand up and defend the interests of the United States from these terrorists who have been slaughtering millions of Americans. Again, I don't want to repeat myself. more Americans have died from drug overdose, from drugs, than have died in all of our wars combined. Combined. If there's one issue we should have a war on, this is the one. This is the one war that is truly protecting our homeland, our children, our young people, our families, our citizens. This is it. This is the war to have. And Tren de Aragua and these narco-terrorists are evil scum. Look, to be honest, they're more of a silent killer. You know, you go to, you wouldn't know this, Jim, you're in Virginia, but you go to Mass and Cass, a big stretch here in downtown Boston. It's an open-air drug den. They're like walking zombies. It's like The Walking Dead. To see so many of our citizens, they're shadows. They've lost their souls. Some of them are literally losing body parts. They're taking now there's these new synthetic drugs that they're pouring in. You literally start to lose your limbs. But they're so potent and so addictive, people keep taking them. They can't stop. It's literally destroying our country from within. Like, this is the one war we have to fight and we have to win. And these drug traffickers kill more Americans than Al-Qaeda ever has or ever will, or ISIS, or I don't care, take your pick. Frankly, any foreign country in the world will not kill as many Americans as what these drug traffickers and narco-terrorists have. They're scumbags. Blow them out of the effing water, man. Oh, we didn't kill all of them the first time? Drop a second bomb. If you got to, drop a third bomb. This to me is such a joke. It's not even funny. Frankly, it's insulting. I love your idea. Let the families of the victims go up on Capitol Hill and show to them what their open border policy has done to this country. And I'm telling you, they're going to have Pete Hegseth's back. And when they see how many Americans stand with Pete Hegseth, believe me, they're all going to scatter to the wind. Jim, forgive me. Back to your main point. Go ahead, my friend.
Thanks, Jeff. I want to radiate Dave from Pennsylvania. I agree with everything he said. I myself spent over 20 years in the Marine Corps, and I was in Iraq. And just a little point, in Fallujah, when the second battle of Fallujah, in the middle of the night, we went to the line of departure, and the artillery bombarded the city of Fallujah. Now, before the war, the attack happened, we dropped leaflets for everybody, to leave. We gave them a chance to leave and everything else. But unfortunately, a lot of people in Iraq, they're poor, they couldn't move. So when the artillery was done and we made the attack on the city, we found a lot of civilians that were wounded. And I'll tell you what, we helped them. We applied aid and got them on a vehicle and got them back to the rear for things. And I'm talking kids, women, even men that weren't part of the insurgency. So and then they would go it's a mosque, and unfortunately they had the thing that we couldn't attack mosque. Well, finally, our commanders were saying, we're losing too many Marines. You can start chasing these people into the mosque. And we did. And my last point, Jeff, is that everybody that went in the military from day one, from general down to the last private, knows a lawful order or an unlawful order. And look at all the wars we've been in. And there's only one that had lawful orders back in Vietnam when that sergeant shot up that village. And that was the only one. But you think about all these conflicts we've been in. How come we haven't had anybody go to trial for a lawful, unlawful order? Think about that.
Well, Jim, you nailed it. Look, every person who serves in our military knows what's a lawful and an unlawful order. And there's a process if you want to protest an unlawful order. You know this better than I do, Jim. So when the seditious six, led by that coward, Kelly, came out and, posted that video, they knew exactly what they were doing. It was a massive dog whistle. They were signaling, especially to Democrats and anti-Trumpers in the leadership, in the deep state, within the ranks of the military, disobey the commander-in-chief. If you're in the National Guard, don't go into the cities. Don't protect federal law enforcement. If you're part of these strikes on these Tren de Aragua boats that are smuggling in drugs, and you're going after these drug traffickers, don't do it. If Trump is going to order an attack on Venezuela, don't do it. I've never seen such a naked, obvious act of insurrection and treason in my entire life. And that it came from 2 senators and 4 sitting members of the House, 6 members of Congress. Jim, it's unforgivable. What they did was unforgivable. And Pete Hegseth is serious as a heart attack. He wants Senator Kelly to be court-martialed. Okay, text line it's going nuclear. I mean, it is on fire. 70470 70470. This is from 917. Jeff, it is truly remarkable to see how the media and the Democrats are in an uproar, crying over the over the second bombing of a boat that initially killed 9 out of the 11 crew members, and the second one killed the last 2. It is truly, utterly remarkable how the media can take something so small and turn it into something so big. That's what they do. That's propaganda, and that's what they excel at. This is from Larry in Arkansas, and I think Larry makes an excellent point. He says, Jeff, so let me get this straight. The first bomb kills 9, and that's okay. Then the second bomb kills the last 2 more. And it's a war crime? Like, does this make any sense? And then he continues, and I think this is a brilliant point. Jeff, President Trump and Secretary of Defense Hegseth have committed a cardinal sin. They have now shown irrefutably that the quote-unquote war on drugs was a farce, a corrupt moneymaker for the government. Bingo. That's one of their cardinal sins. Because for how many decades has our government been telling us, oh, yeah, we're fighting the drugs, the drug dealers, the drug traffickers. We're fighting them tooth and nail. We're doing everything we can. And, of course, they were doing little to nothing. Along comes Trump, and in less than a year, he has completely sealed and secured the border. He's cut a deal with China that they will no longer be sending fentanyl or the ingredients used to make fentanyl to the Mexican drug cartels. He's choking off the cartels. He's blowing up their boats in the Caribbean. So the fentanyl, the cocaine, the heroin, the meth, it's not coming in through the southern border. We've cut that off. It's not coming in through the northern border. We've cut that off. And now it's not even coming through the seas and through the waterways because we're cutting that off. In other words, for the first time since Reagan, we have a real war on drugs, and we're winning. We're winning. And all it took was some willpower and some determination. 617-266-6868. John in Raynham. Thanks for holding, John, and welcome.
Jeff, thank you so much for taking my call.
My pleasure.
Unbelievable. I'm going to first start off by saying I'm not going to use any cuss words, okay? So I'll be careful on that. But where is the insert a cuss word here, ending in ing, the outrage of the war crimes committed against our own citizens allowed by and probably orchestrated by the demon rats, I call them, not Democrats, demon rats.
Secondly, the guy Kelly, Trump's after me, trying to kill me. Geez, there wasn't such an outrage where Trump was shot and other attempts on his life. That's okay. I feel we need to have some Moabs. This is not being aggressive, not to be hurtful to people, the demon rat side. The M in Moab stand for more, O for outstanding, A, American, and B, band together. More outstanding Americans band together as a large group and take our country back. What say you, sir?
John, it's happening already. And you're starting to see it now. The country senses we've got maybe one last chance to fix the mess that Obama, and it's really Obama who is the mastermind, but what Obama, Biden, and the radical Democrats have done. And look, let's be honest, the Republicans in Congress are useless. You forget about them because they're not going to deliver. It's obvious. So basically, it's the Trump team with the American people. We're the only ones now. We're going to have to carry this country on our shoulders and restore it. And look, the economy has to turn around. He needs that for the midterms. If he can get the economy to turn around, and I think he will, everything that Trump is doing is going to take care of itself. The mass deportations are going to continue. He's not going to stop. The border, the invasion is going to be blocked off. So the invasion will now be stopped. He's now got the drug traffickers on the run. The drug cartels are on the run. So he's breaking the back of the drug cartels. So, whether it's immigration, whether it's drugs, whether it's these trade deals now, he's fixing every single one of them. I said this to Grace last night. We're looking at $20 trillion in investment that he's now locked in just in the first 8 months of his presidency, investing here in the United States. Artificial intelligence, manufacturing, tech, you name it. I mean, the country is going to boom. He's rebuilt our military. Inflation now, thankfully, is starting. It's got to go down a lot more. Don't get me wrong. But no, you can tell inflation is cooling off. It is starting to go down. Look, we got to get rid of Jerome Powell. I can't get rid of that guy fast enough. He's killing us on the economy. He's killing us. Now, his term ends in March. So no matter what, he's gone. And it looks like it's going to be Kevin Hassett, by the way, who's going to replace Powell. He's going to be an incredible Fed chair. He's going to drive the interest rates down. You're going to see the housing market boom. Banks are going to start lending money. Credit is going to flow. So, look, the fundamentals are all there. We just need another 2.5, 3 years for him to complete what we started. We've got to get over the midterms. And look, John, you may disagree with me, which is fine. I'm starting to think we got to nuke the filibuster. Because that way we get election integrity. We can stop the Democrats from potentially stealing elections. And if we can do that, we're going to win the midterms. And if we win the midterms, I think we're going to permanently defeat the left. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I know we've asked it earlier, but let me re-ask it again. It is the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. Was the second strike on the narco-terrorist drug boat last September in the Caribbean by the U.S. military a war crime? In your view, was that second strike? It was a Tren-de-Aragua boat, narco-terrorist boat, in September, actually September 2nd, in the Caribbean by the U.S. military. Was it a war crime? The left says yes. The Democrats are screaming Hegseth is a war criminal. The media is screaming Hegseth is a war criminal. I say these people are utterly insane, but that's me. A, yes. B, no. You can vote on our webpage, WRKO.com/Kuhner, WRKO.com/Kuhner, KUHN is in National ER. You can also vote via X, my handle there, all one word, at The Kuhner Report, at The Kuhner Report, KUHNER. Jim in Florida. Thanks for holding, Jim, and welcome.
Oh, hi. Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Jim.
Hi. I wanted to call in and make a point of a similar scenario that happened in World War II. With the U.S., the name of the ship is the USS Wahoo, a submarine, and their commander, Dudley Morton. Basically, the submarine sank a Japanese troop ship and then shot the people, the soldiers, the troops in the water. And not only did they do that, they filmed it. You can actually see it on YouTube. But the guy's name was Dudley Morton, and they asked him, "Well, why did you do it?" He wasn't punished. He did it because if you let them survive and go back to fighting, they're just gonna continue fighting and kill Americans. And these people in the drug boats, they're gonna do the same thing. They're just gonna kill Americans, and they don't care, So, as a historical precedent, I don't think he's a war criminal. It's just, this whole thing is stupid. It's just a deflection to, keeping themselves out of trouble.
I agree. Jim, it's a manufactured scandal. It's fabricated. They're just making it up. They're making up something into, not that it happened, but what I mean is they're turning something that is perfectly normal, that is completely ordinary, that is just literally part of a military mission, and they're trying to make something out of nothing. It's a hoax. It's another faux Democrat scandal. They're trying to manufacture and fabricate something, being somehow wrong or evil or immoral, when the exact opposite is true. It was completely lawful. It was exactly what you do in a military mission. And, look, just so that people understand, these aren't people who just go on a boat and then drop off some, kilos of cocaine. This is Tren de Aragua. These are the people that go around, with machetes, with guns, terrorizing Americans in apartment complexes in Colorado, and they're the rivals of MS-13. These are sadistic killers. Yes, they also go on boats and transport drugs, but they're part of the drug cartels. They're part of the drug traffickers. They're an international criminal terrorist network. They're mass murderers and psychopaths. So, it would be like 11 members of ISIS are on a boat and they're smuggling drugs into the United States, and we blow up the boat and some of it still survives. And there's 2 of them, 9 are dead and 2 are still clinging to the remains of the boat. No one would be saying, oh, you shouldn't have taken that second shot. You'd say, yeah, they're ISIS, they're terrorists, take them out. We do that all over the world. What's wrong with people? What's wrong with everybody? That's exactly what happened here. So, no, if they want to die on this hill, Jim, if they want to defend narco-terrorists, if they want to defend Tren de Aragua, if they want to defend cocaine traffickers and drug smugglers, let them. That's another 80-20, 85-15 issue. And if I'm Pete Hegseth, I go, well, I'll come in front of your committee, no problem. No, we're not going to do it in a skiff. I'm going to be under oath with the cameras, and I want to expose each and every one of you. So you want us to let in the drugs? You want us to let in Tren de Aragua? What, we're supposed to let them see what? So, A, they're going to be eaten by the sharks. So what am I supposed to do? Stand there and allow them to be eaten by sharks? Or I could blow them out of the water right now and basically put an end to their misery. So A, what we did was A, much more humanitarian and compassionate, but B, What am I supposed to do? Let them potentially swim away if they get away? And then what? So they can kill more Americans? In Hollywood, that's not how it's portrayed in the movies. Yeah, I don't live in Hollywood. I live in the real world. War is ugly and nasty. That's what war is. That's why it's always a last resort. And if you're going to wage a war, you do it exactly the way they're doing it now, with overwhelming lethal power. You end this and you end it fast. Because ironically, that's how you save more lives. Jim, thank you so much for that call. Agree, disagree. Russ in Boston. Thanks for holding, Russ, and welcome.
Give me a break. How low can they go undermining needed military operations? Let's face it, control freaks love people on drugs. They're easier to brainwash and control. That's why they don't want to stop the flow of drugs. Let's face it. Any member of the United States Senate or Congress that's a veteran and does not speak out against undermining military operations are turncoats. They are turncoats, they're turncoats, they're turncoats. And in Massachusetts, the Democrat voters love turncoats like John Kerry and Seth Moulton. Okay, let's face it, all right? Let's tell it like it is. Job one for the Democratic Party is create chaos, divide, conquer, and control. That is their goal. They don't care about freedom of the United States or America. That's all they want to do. If we're an honest media in this country, President Trump would have an 80% approval rating. And Jeff, I want to say this with all sincerity. Hegseth is the GI's Secretary of Defense. Vance is the GI's Vice President. The GI's Vice President. And they are great leaders. They are the kind of leaders that I've been waiting for the last 60 years. And when I see Hegseth do PT with the troops and Vance put on fatigues and fire a few rounds on the rifle range, I love them in a non-sexual way. You don't know how much I cherish them, Jeff. Believe me when I say it.
You know, Russ, look, you served multiple tours in Vietnam. To me, you're a patriot, a hero. I can never thank you enough for your service. And I just want to ask you this, because Sandy and I were discussing this during the break. I can literally count on one hand times where soldiers, and I'm going back now, we're talking Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, Vietnam, Korea, World War II, World War I. I could go on, where American soldiers defied an order. You can literally count it on one hand. And one of them was in Iraq, whereby they were told to deliver some oil or gasoline to a particular location, and they said no. And the reason why they said no, not that they disagreed with the mission, but they were given such faulty equipment that if they went into their equipment, the equipment would blow up and they'd all die. And so the military did an investigation and they were completely exonerated. But, you know, we're talking about literally a handful. So for these seditious six to post a video and say, oh, you have to defy an unlawful order. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let's go right back to Russ in Boston. Russ, as a Vietnam War vet, I've got to ask you, you look at our history, you can count practically on one hand the number of times troops have disobeyed an order, saying it's an illegal or an unlawful order. A few times they have been court-martialed, severely court-martialed. A couple of times, I mentioned the example before the break in Iraq. They were like, we want to deliver the oil and the gas that you guys are asking us to deliver, but literally the equipment is so bad, we get into these, whatever it was, vehicles, we're going to get blown up. Like literally, it's just going to blow up. And so when they did an investigation, they said, no, okay, you were right. No, you made the right decision. It's not a suicide pact to join the military. My larger question to you, Russ, is this. You're a warrior. You know many other warriors. Do they need to be reminded? Did you need to be constantly reminded by these clowns in the Senate and in the House, these 6 Democrats or people like them, that, if there's an unlawful order, you should disobey it. They're acting as if the U.S. military issues unlawful orders every day, that this is frequent, it happens often, and that somehow people who serve in the military, Russ, people like you just don't know the Uniform Military Code of Justice. You guys just don't know what's lawful and unlawful. What say you, Russ?
One code: duty, honor, and country. Okay, and we do the right thing. Now, in the event this question, you'll be court-martialed, and if you truly carried out an order that was not honorable, okay, then you'll be court-martialed. So you will have your day in court without question. But to make blanket statements like this really tee me off, Jeff, to no end. Jeff, I'd like to say something which I've never said over the air before, but I need a little time to say it, okay? As you all know, I'm a Vietnam vet, okay? I feel the mistakes we made in Vietnam. First of all, I believe and I can't prove this, but if President Kennedy was the president when it came time to introduce combat troops, everything would have been much different, okay? The first thing he would have done was also at the same time apply the principle of the oh God, where's my head right now? Of the Peace Corps, okay? Now, just to think, if initially we had bombed all their ports, mined all their harbors, major attack on Hanoi, and at the same time took the Peace Corps in a large way and started building our way from the Mekong Delta north, and we could have done a much better job in winning the hearts and minds of the Vietnamese people and gave them a will to fight, no difference than the Ukrainians or the Poles or any other country that are dealing with the Russians, okay? There's no question in my mind we could have won the hearts and minds. And it was much easier to be successful in the Choi Hoi program, which was a program to get them to come to our side, okay? And we could have been really successful in that. And then let the Vietnamese people do all the combat. And, Jeff, there's no question, any Vietnam vet that served in country can tell you it was the toughest place to fight a ground war with the jungles, the swamps, the mosquitoes, and the insurgents. Let's not forget the insurgents, okay? It was a tough place to fight. And any general, okay, that didn't advise the president of what a mistake it would be to concentrate on the land war without applying a principle of Peace Corps was stupid. And unfortunately, 58,000 Americans died. Another 250,000 came back wounded. And basically, that could have been avoided. Maybe we would have only had maybe 5,000 casualties or something, okay, if it had been prosecuted much better. But always remember one thing. The principle of keeping the communists at bay, that's what I'm most proud of. I'm proud of the time I spent in Vietnam. I'm proud of the time that I spent in Germany. F the communists, okay? And I'll say one other thing, Jeff. My dream team in 2028 is J.D. Vance as president and Marco Rubio as the vice president. I want to say this. I've always loved Marco Rubio because he's an anti-communist just like we are.
That's probably going to be the ticket, Russ. I mean, if you look at the polls now and what the base wants, in terms of a primary, it's going to be J.D. Vance number 1, Rubio number 2. So that's probably what it's going to end up being. Russ, look, I agree with you. Communism was the enemy, and people like you that served in Vietnam, you played a key part in winning the Cold War. There's no question. No question. And I think humanity owes our Vietnam vets like you a huge debt of gratitude. Russ, thanks again, my friend. 617-266-6868. Look, it's duty, honor, country. That's what our military stands for. And what they're trying to imply, they're not implying it, they're saying it, is that under Trump, our military does not have duty, honor, and country. And that is disgusting. Again, it's deliberate. It's sabotage. It's treason. And they're trying to foment disruption. They're trying to foment sedition. They're trying to foment an insurrection. So they know exactly what they're doing. because they can't stand the fact that Kamala Harris lost and Donald Trump won. This is all about them not accepting the fact that Trump is president of the United States. He won, they lost. 617-266-6868. Phil in the great state of North Carolina. Thanks for holding, Phil, and welcome.
Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate you taking my call.
My pleasure, Phil.
The last time we spoke was during Hurricane Helene when you helped me out with Meredith's purse. I'll never forget it.
Oh, my pleasure, Phil. I take it everything is okay? Everything has been settled?
Well, it's coming along. The city's got a long way to go, but we're coming back.
Good. Excellent.
Regarding today's situation, 2 points. That the issue with the Democrats is that boat which was sunk on September 3rd, and if I'm not mistaken, I think that was the second time we made a hit. Okay, all this time has expired. The Deminus 6 came out with their statement about following orders. They go back to September 3rd. Oh, there were 2 people killed. So now we're going to make this a political football, which they have done. My second point is this, and I think it's the most important. This activity, which took place in, I think, the 12 boats that have been sunk, the mission was to sink those boats carrying drugs. It wasn't about personnel. There was 12 personnel on each boat. The mission was not to kill people. The mission was to sink those boats. And when they went back after that second time on September 3rd, it was to sink that boat because it was still afloat. It's people's lives are not the issue here. The issue is sinking all these drugs to the bottom of the ocean that were headed for the United States.
Checkmate. Phil, you hit the nail right on the head. And that's, and that's Hegseth's argument. I'm telling you, that's Admiral Bradley's argument. He goes,
Absolutely.
Look, I was given an order. This is what Bradley's saying. And he said it's a lawful order. Obviously, we've got very dangerous drugs coming into the United States. It's a drug war. The cartels are waging a war, and they want to kill as many Americans as possible. We're given an order now to destroy the drug boats. And we launched a missile. It didn't thoroughly destroy the boat. It decapitated it. Yes. It incapacitated the boat, but there was still a good chunk of the boat there. Well, I want the whole boat at the bottom of the ocean. That's where the drug should be. And until the boat is at the bottom of the ocean, the mission isn't accomplished. So in this case, it took 2 bombs. And it's no different, Phil, that when you order a strike on terrorists or whatever, on a compound, or it's been going on for forever, and you go, first strike, didn't quite do it. Okay, launch a second one. But what's the problem? Like, Phil, I mean, this is the one, I've been saying this all morning. No liberal can respond to this. Where does it say, I want to know, in the law of armed conflict that they keep citing, that you can't bomb a target a second time? Or a third time, or a fourth time? Like, where does it say you've only got 1 shot? That's it. Only one. You only got 1 missile or 1 bomb or whatever. And if you don't quite get it, well, too bad. Too bad. You can't go and take a second shot. There is no such law. It's never been done. No military does this. We don't do it. No one else does it because it's insane. Phil, am I wrong?
You are 100% right. This is what we should have done. If the boat is still afloat, you go back and sink it. Period. Paragraph. And Pete Hegseth, it's a non-entity here. I mean, don't even show up for the hearing. It's ridiculous. Ridiculous.
Phil, thank you very much for that call. It's beyond ridiculous. I mean, that's why, if the response is like, what's the story? That was they're like, you have a response to the Washington Post story. They're like, what story? Well, that you launched a second strike. And they're like, okay, and? Well, there were 2 survivors. Okay, yeah, and? They're foreign terrorists. They're narco-terrorists. Like, okay, all right, so it took a second bomb. What? What's the point? Well, it's a war crime. What? How is this a war crime? Well, it violates the law of armed conflict. Where does it violate the law of armed conflict? Show me where it violates the law of armed conflict. Well, we're going to hold hearings now. And listen, Mark Kelly's really upset about this. And so is the New York Times and CNN and Chuck Schumer. And I mean, they're all now, Hegseth's got to resign. Why? If they didn't blow up the boat, or if there's a pattern where, like, guys, you're shooting at the boats and you're not hitting the boats. In other words, like, there's incompetence. Then I see a reason to demand maybe the resignation of the Secretary of Defense. But they're 12 for 12. They've targeted 12 boats and they've taken out all 12 boats. The media doesn't dispute this. And over 80 terrorists have been killed. Now, 11 of the 12, it was one strike, and that's it. But the first one, it was one strike, not quite finished. Call in the second strike, and then it's at the bottom of the sea. So, okay. What's the problem? I'm looking at like, what's the problem? So that's why they said, this is inflammatory. This is a fake issue. This is a complete hoax. You're just trying to manufacture a scandal where literally none exists. It's like saying he saluted his superior. You're like, okay. Well, no. But why not? Well, the law of armed conflict. I mean, it's ridiculous. And that's how desperate they are. And I'm telling you, because they know the seditious six is in deep trouble. They know it. You see, Pete Hegseth isn't playing around. Okay, let me use some crude language. He's not blanking around. Okay, he's not effing around. Hegseth is very serious about a court-martial for Dr. Evil. He's very serious about a court-martial for Senator Kelly. So now they've got to paint this guy, I'm not kidding, as a second coming of Adolf Hitler, as Himmler. You know, the man who ran the SS for the Nazis. He's the second coming of Hitler. You know, Himmler in particular. War crimes, innocent people, they're being shot, they're being bombed. This is not who we are. They're trying to destroy him and discredit him so that he can't go forward with the court-martialing of Dr. Evil. That's what this is all about. And Hegseth, I hope he now shows us what he's made of. Just keep going, Pete. If anything, here's what I would do. Really, you guys want to play these games now? So you even want to politicize lawful, legitimate strikes on narco-terrorists and Tren de Aragua? That's what you guys want to do? Okay. Intensify the investigation. Now I want you to really go after Kelly. I want even more investigators on the case. In other words, we're going to squeeze them and squeeze them and squeeze them. Andy in Milford. Agree, disagree? Andy in Milford. Thanks for holding, Andy, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi,
and
Andy.
Thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure.
And I agree with all the points you've made, 1,000%. Jeff, we have to have an adult conversation across the board, all branches of the military, all levels, about the rules of engagement. First, to start off domestically, our soldiers, National Guard, otherwise, that are on active duty of any kind, every one of them needs to be armed, at least carrying a sidearm. If that had been the case with Sarah Beckstrom, there's a good chance she would still be alive and healthy today. If that had been the case with Andrew Wolf, there's a good chance he would still be healthy today. And also, Jeff, in Afghanistan, if our forces were not under the rules of engagement that they were, I contend that whole affair in Afghanistan could have been wrapped up in 10 years, maybe even less. There's no way we would have even had to have been there 20 years. Okay, Jeff, moving forward now. The purpose of a Department of War is to kill and take out the enemy. And let's just be realistic. As far as these drug boats goes, Pete Hegseth should just be able to be abundantly clear. You take out those drug boats, nobody gets out of it alive, period. Everybody is dead. And that needs to be the message sent around the world to all these narco-terrorists. If you engage in narco-terrorism against the United States of America, you all, every last one, are going to be dead, period.
Oh, Andy, again, great call. I mean, you're completely right. Look, this is, I think, what scares a lot of people. I mean, I mentioned the whole seditious six, the political angle, and how this is all blowing up in the Democrats' face, and how they hate Hegseth because he's loyal to Trump, and he's really, by the way, de-wokeifying the military. And he's purging it of all these Democrats and deep state traitors that were undermining Trump in his first term. So they really can't stand Hegseth. But on top of everything else, it's exactly what you just talked about. Hegseth is serious about waging the war on drugs in a way that we're going to win the war on drugs. In other words, no, we can, it's like, everybody said, no, you can't get rid of NAFTA. No, we just did. Remember they said you can't secure the border. Remember they kept saying that over and over again? No, you just can't do it. You have to pass this comprehensive immigration deal. And Trump is like, no, I can secure the border. Just give me the presidency and I'll secure it. And you realize it's true. There's now, what is it now, 5 months in a row? There's nobody, literally, not a single illegal, not even one is trickling into our country. Not one. It's been, 5 months now? So it went from 20 million to 0. And it's all because of will in the White House. So what you're seeing now, to your point, Andy, is, no, we've got a president and we've got a secretary of defense, pardon my French, they're kicking ass. And they're saying to the drug cartels, now you got a target on your back, a real target. You're not bringing in your stuff. Your cargo is not coming in through land. We've choked you off. It's not coming in by sea. We've choked you off. You try to fly it in, we're going to blow it out of the sky. And now we're closing in on Maduro, who's one of your biggest backers. So we're choking him out as well. So you know what? Send your product somewhere else. It's not welcome anymore in the United States. And people are like, oh my God. I mean, in other words, Trump and Hegseth are proving we can fight and win our wars that directly impact the United States and the American people. That's why they have to stop him. That's why they're going crazy. Andy, I've got to ask you this before I let you go. What do you think now is going to happen regarding the buildup that we're seeing regarding Venezuela? 11 warships now have been sent right across in the waters, right across from Venezuela. 15,000 U.S. troops are now poised potentially to invade. There's a Marine Expeditionary Force ready for an amphibious invasion. Trump has now told everybody around the world, we're shutting down air traffic over Venezuela. Don't send a plane because it could get blown out of the sky. Maduro is convinced that we're on the verge of a war and that Trump is going to launch a regime change war. What say you, Andy?
All the buildup, Jeff, points to that. And here's my hope. If we do have a regime change and get rid of Maduro, I hope that free and fair elections are secured in Venezuela so that the Venezuelan people will be able to send the message to Maduro, his party, and all his apparatchiks, we're done with you. And they'll be able to make the change.
Andy, thank you very much for that call. What I'm praying for, fingers crossed, you can't see me, but I'm actually, crossing my fingers, is that this is Trump, art of the deal. Okay, let me ask all of you really a double-barreled question. We know it's another hoax, like Russia. Okay, we know that. So, it's, like January 6th, and we could go on and on. So we know they're manufacturing a fake scandal and an attempt now to just defame and humiliate and undermine Hegseth, and by Hegseth to go through him to get to Donald Trump. But do you think that this scandal, and I'm putting scandal in air quotes, will it have legs? In other words, will it politically damage the administration? With the hearings that are planned in the House and in the Senate, with the media now just nonstop going after Hegseth, playing this up as this great war crime, will this damage Hegseth, in your view? And will this ultimately damage Trump? Or do you think the American people are going to see through it? I'm just curious. 617-266-6868. One last ultra quick point. I'm never going to forget Benghazi. That is the bone that sticks in my craw. It's the bone in my throat, as Khrushchev famously said, and I can't swallow it. Because you want to talk about a war crime. This was Hillary Clinton's war crime. It was Obama's war crime. It was the deep state's war crime. That 4 of our own were left twisting in the wind, abandoned, as they were surrounded by Islamist terrorist savages. And there was no help. There was no rescue operation. The cavalry was not called. They were left there to be murdered and dismembered and to have their bodies dragged through the streets. They were abandoned and betrayed. Our own. Our own. And Democrats didn't give a damn about Benghazi. As many of them said, Benghazi? What's Benghazi? So I'm sorry, but that is so seared into my brain. What happened to those 4 brave, courageous patriots and how they were left dangling like that. And what must have gone through their minds as they were being overrun and then eventually systematically murdered by the mob. Where is my country? Where is the cavalry? Where are the reinforcements? How come nobody's here? Why have we been abandoned and betrayed? Don't lecture me about Pete Hegseth. You didn't cry for the 4 victims of Benghazi, but you cry for 2 Tren de Aragua narco-terrorists? I'm sorry. Really, blank you. I'm serious, blank off. So, no, I hope Pete Hegseth holds the line. I hope Trump holds the line. And I hope for once the Republicans develop some stones and tell the Democrats and the media, you know what, on this one, go fly a kite. Agree, disagree. Eric in Plymouth. Thanks for holding, Eric, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Eric.
Thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure, Eric. Eric said it was happy to be on, and then we lost Eric. Okay, let's see if we can reconnect with Eric. Let's go to Vince in Long Island, New York. Thanks for holding, Vince, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. How you doing? I hope you had a good Thanksgiving.
Well, Grace made her lasagna, my friend. Need I say more, Vince?
No. So I was going to say, before we can take care of our external enemies, we really must take care of the internal enemy. It's like in a hockey game. Can you ever win a hockey game if your defenseman is blowing the game?
No, you can't.
It's insanity. So, we let them steal the 2020 election. And we may never have gotten the government back on account of that, were it not for this miracle that Trump conducted. It's truly a miracle because we weren't supposed to gain back the government ever again. So this BS with sustaining the filibuster, I think it should go because the rationale of they're going to use it if we do it, they're going to use it regardless. The idea is to keep them out of power. It's like when we bombed Dresden in Germany, how many people died? Were we concerned if the Germans were going to bomb New York? We have to do what we have to do. And I think we're in an internal war here. And all these things have to be done like you're at war. The filibuster must be eliminated. You gotta clean out the voting system. You got to maintain integrity in the country. Otherwise, we lost the country. And as far as these drugs go, half of these countries in South America, most of their GDP.
Vince, can you do me a favor? You're really on a roll. I'm up against a hard break. I'm going to come right back to you. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I'm going to go right back to Vince in Long Island. He was on a roll. But just before I do, just so that you know the intensity of this story, CNN, Chiron, it's been like this all morning, but I'm just giving it the last 60 seconds. CNN, U.S. lawmakers, second strike could be a war crime. MS Now, second strike is a war crime. You can go down. Every NBC News, CBS News, ABC News, it's around the clock. All of the local stations here. Is Pete Hegseth a war criminal? Second bombing, was it a war crime? Question mark. Or second bombing was a war crime. And I'm not talking about the Washington Post. I'm not talking about the New York Times or the Associated Press or the Boston Globe or USA Today or the Wall Street Journal where they're leading with this. I'm talking headlines, front page headlines. They've already got Pete Hegseth gone. He's gone. He's already gone. Now they're talking about should he be arrested and put in the dock. So this is how they're getting ahead of themselves on this story. It is an all-out feeding frenzy. Okay, let's go right back to Vince in Long Island. He was making some superb points. We're in a political war. For example, when we bombed Dresden during World War II, we didn't ask how many innocent civilians were killed in the process. We didn't say, well, if we bomb Dresden, what if the Germans then retaliate and bomb New York City? We had a mission. It was victory, and we achieved victory. We have to do the same thing now in this political war. And so Vince was making the point that, frankly, I agree with. Let's get rid of the filibuster. Let's pass election integrity, voter ID, so we can have safe, secure, clean elections. Because if we don't, the left is going to steal power, and this time they're never going to give it back. Vince, please, you wanted to pivot now to this whole war on drugs and the second strike and Hegseth and the chain of command. Please, go ahead, Vince.
Right. I also wanted to mention the atomic bomb used on Japan. We got it, we used it before they got it and used it on us. The same thing with the filibuster. They're going to use it. And they'll basically change the country forever. So basically, this is a moment of the atomic bomb on Japan. We must go forward with it. And like I was saying, these countries, they exist on the drug trade. They're basically narco states. And look at us, for instance. We are addicted to cheap Chinese goods. We can't even get off Chinese goods. You think these countries can get off drugs? They can't. It's a war. You have to take them over and clean them out. We did this already in Panama. Manuel Noriega, remember him? The big drug kingpin? He spent some time in Florida, a good 20 years vacation. So
No, Vince, I remember that. No, he was messing around. He kept poking the United States, and Bush told him, listen, knock off with the drugs now. It's like, we don't want this. You're flooding our country. And Noriega got too big for his britches, and so we sent in the Marines. And Vince, was that 24 or 48 hours? Really, I know it was a day or two. I can't remember if it was 2 or 1. But we deposed him, and you're right. He went to a prison in Florida, and what was that, 25 years? Goodbye, Manuel Noriega. Vince, Maduro is surrounded by drug kingpins. He's a drug kingpin himself. The head of Colombia is a drug kingpin. The head of Peru is a drug kingpin. The head of Bolivia is a drug kingpin. Mexico is a narco state. Scheinbaum, the president, is very closely tied to the Mexican drug cartels. You have a few countries like El Salvador that are clean, honest governments. But for the most part, every leader in Latin America is either directly or indirectly involved in the drug trade because there's just too much money, too much corruption. The temptation is just too great. So, Vince, my question to you, if Trump is going to go after Maduro, is he not going to eventually have to go after the leader of Colombia, Scheinbaum in Mexico? In other words, if we're going to get into the regime change business, I understand Maduro has done damage to us. There's no question. But it seems to me, you know, we're going to be toppling a lot of regimes in Latin America. What say you?
Is to make an example of one and then recruit them in your battle and have your minions conduct the extended war. You know, instead of living off the drug narco money, the CIA must subsidize them with money to fight our wars on our behalf. There's no need for us to fight the wars. We don't need to get our hands messy and everything. And the other thing I want to say, I thought affordability was the biggest issue going today. What's with this blowing up a couple of boats matter? Isn't that Mandami and affordability? That's the talk of the day. I mean, now we can say what a couple of fishermen, as they call them. Anyway, I wanted to pivot to another subject, the Quebecistan subject. You know, and how insane these people are, how they're paying for their own invasion while they're resisting to join America. And I had an analogy for that, a funny analogy. There was this guy walking on the street, and he asked this woman, he's like, would you take $1,000 to sleep with me? She goes, no way. There's $5,000. No way. Then $10,000. She pauses, and she goes, what do you think? I'm a whore? He goes, we already established that. Now we're just negotiating price.
Vince, thank you very, very much for that call. No, look, I got to tell you, I went up to Montreal over the weekend. Spent a little bit of the Thanksgiving weekend visiting family. Mostly was Grace's side of the family. And I cannot tell you how many Muslims there are now in the province of Quebec, and especially in the city of Montreal and in the suburbs around Montreal. Muslims everywhere, hijabs everywhere, mosques everywhere. And really, the nickname now is, it's no longer the province of Quebec, it's the province of Quebekistan. You feel like you're in Europe, but not in the way you used to feel with the French ambiance and the French culture and the French influence. No. You feel like you're in Europe now the way you go to France today, or the United Kingdom, or Germany, or, Denmark. It is full of Muslims. They're overrun. Absolutely overrun. And many of them don't work. It's just so obvious. They're being subsidized, free housing, free food, welfare, free health care, free education. And so they're just sitting around the coffee shops, yakking. They don't assimilate. They don't want to assimilate. And so, the town that I grew up in, the suburb that I grew up in, unrecognizable. Unrecognizable. I feel when I went to visit over the weekend, just to come in and take a look, and I couldn't believe my old stomping grounds, where I was born and raised. It's like I'm in Pakistan or Saudi Arabia. To say transformation is an understatement. So I felt I'm in a Muslim society. It's incredible. And all of this in 25 years. 617-2, but I digress. Or as I like to say, let that go. 617-266-6868. Eric in Plymouth. Thanks for holding, Eric, and welcome.
Morning again, Jeff.
Hi, Eric.
Take my call.
Yes, we got through to you. Good.
Yes, in the past 2 weeks, there's been Mondani, MTG, BBC, Furbies, National Guard, Big Beautiful Bill. You know, there's been Obama, the Epstein seditionist six, okay? Well, all this Obama, Hillary Clinton, what difference does it make? Okay? They don't care about the National Guard, Laken Riley's, the Charlie Kirks, the heroin fentanyl, the borders, okay? It continues and goes on and on and on. When Bill was there, okay, and with wearing the blue dress, the same kind of shenanigans were going on. Okay, now the media, okay, the target, okay, they should be targeting the cartels and the terrorists outside and inside the USA, but they carry water for Obama and Hillary Clinton. It goes on and on and on, and you know, e pluribus unum, okay. Here we are, Thanksgiving, a compact. We, in America, escaped tyranny. And we have the willpower. We have the right people in positions, the headsets, to dismantle and get us back on track. True?
Oh, you're absolutely true. And, you know, as I'm listening to you, you really see how the media is the enemy of the people. Because they're constantly manipulating us. They're constantly lying to us. They're constantly feeding us constant misinformation, disinformation. And notice, you know, somebody said earlier, if we just had an honest media, just honestly report on Trump, his administration, his policies, his successes, his actual real achievements, he'd have an 80-85% approval rating. If we weren't constantly swimming in all these lies and these fake narratives and these fake faux scandals, and this one that I'm talking about today is another one. Okay, now they're war criminals. It's always something every day. It's also, you know, forgive me, it's another line of BS. Bravo, Sierra. It's always a line of BS. He would be at 80-85%. And so what you realize, this is not a media. Dan in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Dan, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi, Dan.
Jeff, I see very clearly what's going on here. By the way, thank you for taking the call. I see very clearly what's going on here. When you have a situation in Venezuela where you had Chavez, who pretty much destroyed the country, Maduro, who's finished the job, basically sending all of his miserable inmates, drug addicts, crazy people out of the institutions. He sent them all over here for us to deal with. He's the one who started the problem. He's always been part of the problem, but then he tried to cast them our way. Now, somebody who's a visionary like Trump, this is what he sees. Basically, he's going to have a regime change. That regime change is going to open up all the rare earth minerals, all the rare earth oil, and other things that they have over there. We'll have a democracy that basically is going to set the people of Venezuela free. The area, like you were saying, Colombia, Bolivia, and other corrupt areas in the immediate area are going to see the writing on the wall. They're either going to capitulate and do business and basically start using their natural resources to, you know, basically help generate our technology and technological independence from China. These things are going to be good for Venezuela. If anything happens in Colombia, it'll be good for the Colombians. They won't all be tied into drugs. And anywhere else that there's corruption going on being sent over to our country. And as far as the seditious six, They're insurrectionists. They're treasonous. Kelly should be brought up without a question. He's a former military man who knows better than what he did to undermine and basically, how can I say, to undermine and basically disrupt the chain of command. And I'm going to tell you right now, I see it. The American people see it. The people that are listening to this station, they see it. They're seditious. And so isn't the media. They're at fault too. They can see that Trump is really going to clean up the world. He's going to clean up the corruption. He's going to clean up the drugs. He's going to clean up all the trafficking of people that they do. And bottom line, he's going to come out on top of this situation, and the media is going to pay for it. The seditious six are going to pay for it. And maybe he could even unify our country, which has been so divided because they just can't stand Trump winning. They can't stand it. They want their power back. They don't tell us what they want to bring us into. Nobody's got any other ideas other than what Trump is doing, and he's doing it right. All they do is attack, 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 and I'm sick of it. I'm an American. I see it. I see it clearly, and I don't like the bullcrap that they're pulling. I think that Kelly should resign. I think that the licenses for all of these stations, MSNBC, CNN, all of this, because they know they're on their last gasp. And if Trump comes through with this, they're gone. And this
but Dan, I think you really put your finger on it. You really feel that things are going to come to a head very soon. And the media now has been caught again lying, red-handed, and they know they're lying. You see, it's one thing to make an honest mistake. People make mistakes. And by the way, in the old days, what I mean by the old days is like, 15 years ago, they would issue a correction. Newspapers would often say, hey, we reported XYZ. It turned out not to be true. Whatever. The true was ABC. Whatever. Okay. My readers say, okay, well, thanks. Thanks for telling us. Well, okay. You haven't lost any credibility. You make a mistake. You would tell your readers, we made a mistake, a good faith mistake. No problem. I never have a problem with somebody admits to me they made a mistake. Okay, great. In fact, your character goes up, frankly, because the temptation is to lie about it. But we don't have that. We have a deliberately dishonest, lying media. And they're there to give us deliberate disinformation to take down Trump. And look, notice, that someone is effective if the media keeps attacking them. If Trump was not an effective president, they wouldn't be attacking him. If Pete Hegseth was not an effective Secretary of Defense, they wouldn't be attacking him. If J.D. Vance was not a brilliant, effective vice president, they wouldn't be constantly attacking him. If Robert F. Kennedy Jr. wasn't doing a stupendous job at HHS, they wouldn't be constantly attacking him. So what it shows to me, this is how if you want just an informal barometer, hey, the guys on our team, how well are they doing? Well, is the media attacking them or not attacking them? So the fact that they're so desperate to get Hegseth out of there tells you everything you need to know. He's doing an outstanding job.